Okay, welcome to our second meeting. I sent out an announcement earlier that I think what I did last week may have confused some. I may have got a little ahead of myself. So just to clarify, um, when you come to these meetings, you don't have to do the weekly journal. Obviously, you have to do the weekly assignment. The only weekly journal you'll have to do is there's a journal and then there's a reflection for Module 8. And we do that because there's no meeting after the due date for Module 8. So we want to hear everybody's reflection relative to this course. If you haven't done so, if you look down on the bottom right hand corner of your screen at a little icon there and hover over it, it's the third one from the right. It'll say chat with everybody. Ken, Michael, and Freesia have already put their name in there. There goes Starnetta. Wonderful. Please put your name in there for purposes of attendance. And again, welcome everybody. I hope you had a very nice Labor Day weekend, traditionally the end of our summer. I don't know what the weather was like in the eastern part of the state, but western part of the state was nice, sunny, sun shining. So hopefully all of Pennsylvania had a good day. I know I cooked way too many ribs for the family, but I'll have to live with that mistake. Is anybody not back in school yet? All right. For active participation, please keep your mics muted unless you want to make a comment. And I will tell you, this is a bunch of adults, so comments are more than welcome. So just please, as this conversation continues, please click off your mute and participate. And also, I'd like to see who I'm talking to, try to associate faces with names when I try to read your material. So please have your cameras on. That would be wonderful. Okay.
Is there a link for this? I'm on my phone for this virtual meeting.
Yes.
I'm not finding the link.
Okay, so it's in the announcement. And another thing I can do for you is I can send you the actual address to an email that you can put right in. Would that be to your address bar, or click on it on your phone? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, that would be great, because then I can join from my laptop instead of my phone.
All right, give me one moment here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, you know what, Leonard? I did find the first announcement. It's the same link, correct?
Yes.
I did find the link for today's from last week's session. So I'm gonna join.
Yeah, give that a shot. Let me know if you need anything else.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you so much.
Daryl, question.
So originally for this week, my grade said that my discussion was already graded and not the reflective journal, and the grade values were swapped around.
All right, so okay, so let me go to that. So as far as the weekly assignment, there should not have been any grades put in for that, because I didn't do that. The only thing I touched ahead of time was the journal. So I'll make sure that
Yeah, on mine, my discussion was graded last week, but now it's showing nothing. My discussion was graded, but the reflective journal said 0.
There should no one should have a 0 on anything. I'll tell you what I'll do, Daryl, is after this meet, I'll double check and make sure that what was supposed to be graded has a grade, and what was supposed to be left ungraded until now has not has a grade. And if there's a problem, I'll shoot you an email. Is that all right?
Okay, yeah, that works, because I had no clue what I was supposed to do this week. Because
there you go. So, well, and Daryl, that was 100% my fault. So we'll try to clear it up moving forward for next week. I just think I got a little I don't want to say anxious, but a little excited here relative to I want to stay on top of it. I don't want people not having feedback, and I jumped the gun a little bit. So we'll make sure all those things are right. And again, whether it's a Google Meet address, whether it's a grading topic or whatnot, like I said, we're all adults here. So I'm happy to admit any and all of my imperfections and solve problems together. Go ahead, Starnetta.
Yes, I have a question, because I could have swore I had a grade in there from last week, and now it's not there for and in the meeting.
That's what Daryl said as well. I will look at all of that in the next 24 hours, and if I don't resolve it, by this time tomorrow on both ends of what was done for week 1, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to respond. So you're correct, because I think what I did and undid confused the heck out of people. So that's not a good job as a teacher, to confuse your class on the first day. So don't do what I did. So we can learn from our successes as well as our failures. Okay. So to set the table again, by this time, you should have read the ASD article, What is Differentiated Instruction? You should have read the Guide to Differentiated Instruction, and hopefully you were able to view those videos. You then had the assignment to do, and I graded those assignments today. And another thing that I like to do within those assignments is write some feedback, right? Because I think it becomes more valuable if you have feedback relative to what I'm saying and why I'm saying it. And also, you spent some time on those responses. I want to pull out a couple general themes from those responses and get some of your feedback relative to those themes. So a lot of us are in this particular field due to the way that we learned. And I said last week, you'll tend to start your teaching with how you learned. I know I did. And again, coming at it from the academic side, I know this will shock many of you, is that I was a history teacher and coached football. How unique. So in any event, I used to love when the teachers talked about Rome and Greece or the founding of the United States. So for me, civics and government and history, wow, that was just in my wheelhouse. So I started just the way that I learned, and just to give you some idea, my first teaching job was in 1992. So, last century, if you will, literally. But I remember I had my little overhead, and I'd make my notes, and I'd have papers for the students, and they'd take their notes, and I'd give some readings and some follow-up questions relative to the reading. Very traditional, because that's what worked for me. And so my third year in teaching, I became an inclusion partner with the special ed department. Does anyone know what that word inclusion means relative to special ed? Okay. Frecia, if I'm saying your name, I saw your head nod. What's inclusion mean to you?
So inclusion is when you have children of all needs collaborating together for the same common goal. I actually coached bocce ball for our inclusive team at Central before I came to VOTEC. So I spend a lot of my, we'll call it free life, with the inclusive teams.
So this was about 1995, 1996, and we were a full inclusion model, meaning that I had a special education teacher with me for those full inclusion periods. Let's say about 3 or 6 of my classes, that partner was there. At the time, I got that assignment because I was the lowest person on the totem pole and nobody else wanted it. So I got it. Okay. It was, and I share this with you because it was a revolutionary year for me. So, these students with these IEPs had things like word banks for tests, had things like read things to them instead of having them read. And, I was coming from the position of, well, I said it, they should do it. And, well, that, as I said, that worked for some, but that's not a very good inclusive model of inclusion, if you will. So working with this special ed teacher, I came to realize that, these IEPs, okay, so they're the law? So that was an education as well. So in this course, when we talk about students with an IEP, obviously you are bound by the specifically designed instruction of that IEP. But here's what I came to realize. Well, if this stuff works for kids who have an IEP, you know what? It works for students who don't have an IEP. So it really changed a lot of the way I approach teaching, even in the way that I structured my room. I started out very traditionally, 5 rows, 5 or 6 in each row. I taught in the Seneca Valley School District, and if you don't know where that district is, it's a suburban district of Pittsburgh in Butler County, actually. I want to say now, they have, when I was there, they had about 650 students a class. They probably have more than that now. But they're a huge district of close to 9,000 or 10,000 students, and so I started shaping the environment of my room different, putting them in 3s and 4s. And again, I don't have each one of your names and comments associated, but in one of the readings that I was doing on one of your responses today, it talked about pairing different types of learners. Some of your higher level, because you have multi-level groups in the same room, with some of your intro groups. I think it was a level 1 versus an intro, and how those kids working together. So think about collaboration. We don't tell all the scientists in the world, go in your lab, do your work, be quiet, and don't talk to anybody. Think how ridiculous that sounds. But, I went to kindergarten in 1975, just to give you a little time frame. Dinosaurs were roaming the earth, and we sat in our seats, and that the teacher said it, we were expected to do it. And no, I don't want you to call my mother. So it was a very traditional sense. So fast forward that 25 years, and then I was teaching, and then I had this inclusive experience, revolutionized the way I taught, and collaboration. What I came to realize, think about this: what you know the most, you are sharing with others. So what happens when your other level students share with your younger level students? Here at Lawrence County Career and Technical Centers, our seniors we're comprehensive. So if they're ahead on their academic side and aren't involved in co-op, we allow them to become student assistants. So they have to have the recommendation of the teacher. They can't have behavior problems, etc. Do any of you have any type of program like that? Many of you have that. Wonderful. Wonderful. So think about those student assistants and the type of knowledge and skills that they are demonstrating by being able to teach. Has anyone had a successful student assistant experience that they care to share? Go ahead, Frisa.
So I get a lab assistant each year. So it's set up with one specific senior who excels. If they can't go into co-op, then they come into the level 1 classroom and they basically help. I don't want to say co-teach, but they are responsible for certain lesson planning. So it gives them the opportunity to like take charge and show leadership skills. And then they also help with some of like the actual skills testing, because it's the basic knowledge that they've already had for 3 years. So they actually get to sit in and make sure that the level 1s are doing things appropriately. The young lady I had last year, I honestly don't know how I would have gotten through my first year of teaching without her. Our first day, we just kind of looked at each other and she asked me what she was supposed to do. And I said, I didn't even know why she was sitting next to me. But as the year went on, she was a blessing and I was grateful for her. So kind of got the opportunity to re-engineer that program for the young lady that started with me this year.
All right, I see Michael Navarre writes, yes, in collision, I set the seniors to be the student mentors and work either one-on-one or in small groups with the level 1 students. What I see, I remember. What I hear, I forget. What I do, I understand. Maybe you've heard that before. You know, that's from Confucius. So we can rewind thousands of years and see that a best practice is a best practice and stands the test of time. Julian, you said you had a similar student assistance program, had some success with it. You care to unmute yourself and share?
Yes, so with my girls, if they don't go on co-op, I actually have them interview for like a salon manager position. So I interview them as if it was like a regular job. They come in and then they get the position. So one of my girls last year, she actually is working with me full-time at the salon right now in real time. So she was able to get her license and work, and now she's making money and she's in college. So that definitely helped her get the skills to kind of put herself out there, build a clientele, and she's doing great. So, and it's nice because I get to work with her. So I get to see like full circle how she's come around. But it's great because they get competitive, you know,
Right.
Everybody wants that title. So it kind of makes them step their game up to kind of go and interview, and we interval. So it's really cool to see them do it too. So it's nice.
Well, think about that. Real world applicable skills. Interview. One of the things where I think we have an advantage here is we do a comprehensive senior project that ties in the academic side with the vocational side. And we take 2 half days, and our seniors have to go through an exit interview process. If they do not go through the exit interview process, they can graduate but not go to commencement. So it's kind of a graduation requirement, if you will. So they have to show up in professional attire. They have to do a 10-minute presentation, and then they have to do a question and answer. Now, their CTE teacher chairs the board, but there's 2 other teachers in there with them. And what we have found is they're so anxious going in, but so excited coming out. And I really think it's an example that we need to challenge students to go beyond what they think they can do. Derek, question, comment, concern.
So at our school, it's a little bit different. So we have our students 5 hours a day at 4 different levels at one time. So we don't have like the student assistant program, but we kind of appoint them to help us with our shop, because when we have 4 different levels at one time, it's hard to get around to everybody. And then we also have the co-op program too. So I have 2 students that next semester, they're here all year. So next semester, I'm going to have them go out and do interviews with local businesses in our area, just to kind of get them the feel for it. And then I kind of let it up to them if they want to take that position either during school or after they graduate.
Okay. Wonderful. Anybody else on student assistant or similar? How about, I saw many of you commented too about being hands-on learners, and either you were trapped or some of your kids have been trapped. Maybe in my class as a traditional teacher, they just feel vindicated or relieved to do those hands-on things. But I think it's also a misnomer, and let me give you an example. So if I tell students here, you know what, you're going to take trigonometry for your math course. Some of them might be very much afraid, but I have a very successful machine tool technology program here where surrounding career centers in other counties do not. And they're doing trigonometry, but they don't know it. They just think it's the math they need to be a machinist. If we tell them, well, you're gonna have to do some geometry, they might not like the a squared b squared equals c squared, but we have carpenters in our construction class. So I really think too that part of differentiation when you're dealing with learners is authenticity. How can they really apply it, right? And then 2, tie it into their interest. So hopefully all of you can at least get that second part down, where what you're doing is tied to their interest. If you looked at the Carol Ann Tomlinson differentiated work, 3 things relative to differentiation. When you differentiate, you are either differentiating on their learning styles, their readiness levels, or their interest inventories. Learning styles. That's a pretty obvious statement. How do these students respond to your instruction? Are they kinesthetic? Are they audio? Are they visual? Are they a combination? And by no means do I think one strategy is going to work for everybody. Learning styles. Readiness levels. And this goes back to something we talked about last week. When you are teaching a new concept, how do you know that they're ready? Particularly at the beginning of the year. Has anybody since last week done any type of pre-assessment to see where their new level 1s are? What they might know, what they might not know, what they're interested in? Go ahead, Joseph.
Well, today was my first day of school ever.
Hey, congratulations. 1 day down, 34 years and 179 days to go. You got it.
Good job, buddy.
Yeah, so I planned for a lot and got to a little.
Perfect.
But I did have to go through to stage my 200 and 300 levels because the last year's teacher, I wasn't sure where they were at. I used an option of like quizzes and kind of questionnaires while I was getting to know them. I just started the conversation and just started like going around the class and just seeing what they worked on and tried to come up with an idea of what they went over last year versus this year.
All right, and then also last year versus this year, how much did they take away? They didn't take away 100% of what was taught, right? All right, so tying into my own experience. So a few years ago, we had a welding teacher, a welding opening. I'm going to start with the opening. Okay. So we have the opening, and one candidate rises above and seems real eager. Day one in the classroom, starts complaining about the kids, starts complaining these kids are beneath him. I'm not taking that too well. So I want to say by day three, our late bell rings at 8:10. They can go to class at 8:05. He was in my office somewhere around 7:55. And I think at one point I said, you know what? Don't let the door hit you in the back on the way out. And that was the shortest tenure. So, Joe, if you last 2 more days, you'll have tied the shortest tenure I ever saw anybody now, he left, to say the least, and I have not seen or heard from him since. And all things work out. We got another candidate. They've been here for years. Beautiful candidate. First of all, you got to have some type of love for kids, okay? Let alone teenagers, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, maybe even a few 19-year-olds, right? Coming up, thinking they know a lot. They really don't. All those developmental issues. So, and some of them, quite frankly, you might even be providing them with the knowledge and skills that they're eating on, literally, or clothing themselves on, literally. So you've got to start with where they are. And many of you commented on that. And I know a lot of you were talking about relative to the curriculum in your classroom, but you got to start where they are emotionally. You got to start where they are mentally. And I'm going to say that as an observation, but do not confuse it with an excuse. We still have to get the students to a standard. I forget who might be our cosmetologist, or we have several cosmetologists here, but here's the challenge with cosmetology. At the end of the day, they all have to get 1,250 hours. And at the end of the day, you expect all of them to pass their state board. So whether they're your top student or not so top student from an academic standpoint, whether they're your top student or not your top student emotionally and developmentally, it's the expectation that they all cross the finish line. And quite frankly here, I know we're all getting paid. I know none of us are volunteers, but I assume that you left industry and came to a school because you want to make a difference with young people. If you don't, it's going to be a long career or a very short career. So I hope that we are all here because we want to make a difference with kids. And in some ways, you might be, one of their main adult figures in their life, beyond their family, parent, whoever might be raising them. Particularly if you're in a school where, if it's not a multiple teacher program and they have you for 2, 3, or 4 years, think about the hours that you've spent with them. Think about how you've gotten to know them. So Joe here on day one has to not only find where they are from a curriculum standpoint, I would give that a readiness level, Joe, but he's got to find out from a readiness level, what did they absorb, and how are they going to learn? They're all going to want to jump right in hands-on, right? Everybody wants to do the hands-on stuff. but you can't go to the roof until you build the foundation. And so all that theory work has a role, has a purpose, has a value. So we're not saying that we're kicking traditional learning to the curb, but what we are saying is in our balance, we need to provide multiple pathways for student success. And that's why it's a juggling act. Michael comments, I always start with a soft open and go around the room with getting to know students for interest and experience. Once we get through safety training, I do a 30-day shake the rust off training to help the returning students refresh themselves on procedures. All the first-year students start at the ground level and work their way up. In our own electrical occupations program, I know because his teacher's done it forever, is that for his pre-assessment and for where they start, they're on 25 individual projects that they can go through at their own pace and that he monitors. And then, of course, all of you have to do safety training. So it's those types of things where we can pre-assess our students. Pre-assessment. They're coming from different schools. They're at different levels. They have different recall. So what is their readiness level? So when we talk about differentiation as we go through this course, you're going to hear me come back to readiness levels, learning styles, interest inventories. And not that you have to write a lesson plan defining it's going to hit this learning style. It's for this readiness level. As I said again, we're going to take these ideas of differentiation and put them together. One of the tools I talked about last week was the response to intervention pyramid, 85-10-5. You're going to do a great job with the majority of your students. But as we understand where they are from pre-assessment and these differentiated strategies, how can we get all of them on board? You know, and I just, I can't sense enough to you, because I know we have some first years, some second years, even some third years here. You know, in that first year, all you got to do is stay a day ahead of the kids, keep grinding, okay? You know, we pluck you out of industry, we throw you into the classroom and say, we'll catch up on all those pedagogical things later. Good luck. So, you know, just keep grinding, keeping the kids the focus, and you should be fine. All right, for the second half here, what I'd like to do is give a little prelude to where we're headed here. So by the conclusion of this lesson, you should be able to identify the emotional characteristics and intellectual characteristics of young adults. I'm going to pull that screen back up to share. Recognizing learning styles and preferences and responding to those with accommodations and modifications and the like is not reserved exclusively for students with identified special needs. It's just good teaching. And again, the reason why I believe it's important to preview the objectives, to preview the big ideas, to preview the essential questions is you're setting your mind. You're setting your mind. And, you know, this big idea is a nice way of reminding Len Rich in 2025 how wrong Len Rich was in 1995. And the lesson that that teacher taught me and the lesson that those kids taught me and what I learned as an instructor through experience. So the good news is for all the Joes out there on their first year of teaching is that as you grow in your craft, you're going to put tools in your instructional toolbox, and not only will you be able to respond, but eventually you'll be able to predict. So the best is yet to come. Essential questions. We have an obligation to find multiple pathways for different students to be proficient on a given standard, concept, or competency. How do we ensure the validity of each pathway will lead to the same degree of proficiency? And then how does our teaching help adolescent learners understand and explore how they might learn best? So you're going to grow in your relationship with them. All right, we reviewed the big ideas. We reviewed the essential questions. You're going to read Adolescent Development Explained. You're going to read UDL, Universal Design for Learning, and I'll do a little prelude on that, as well as this targeted instruction, and we have a couple other videos. So when we talk about characteristics, we'll give some categories to these characteristics. So physical characteristics. So I want you to think about when you were a teenager and how your physical appearance impacted your schooling. Now, we know adults are professionals, so they might do a better job at that, but we haven't cured kids relative to interpreting other kids based upon their physical or hormonal development, whether it's good or bad. Cognitive, so we're seeing changes in the brain as they develop. Emotional, how adolescents process emotions and stress. For those of you who have a year or two under your belt, do you have a anecdote perhaps that kind of caught you off guard in dealing with a student emotional situation, good, bad, or indifferent?
Pay attention to your students. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Alex.
So even if you're new or not, you will notice kind of a person, kind of your student's demeanor. And you, by spending the day with them, you will start to notice different variations in that mood. And you can identify when it's vastly different or exceedingly more than previous days. I had a student who's quiet by nature, became increasingly more withdrawn, and come to find out they were planning suicide that night had I not asked him if he was okay.
Wow.
And it became a really big deal. So you will notice differences in their mood and their tone. And just get to know your students, get to know their baseline so that you can identify when something is completely a complete 180 for them, or if their demeanor has really grown more distant. You will pick up on that, and just tune into your kids.
Tune in. I like it. Ken, then Derek. Go ahead, Ken.
I actually had two different episodes with two different students. One was at the beginning of the year for my program. I requested every student has to purchase a pair of work boots that are electrically safe. I had a student that kept basically backing into the corner, and finally I pulled him aside. I says, "Hey, what's up?" And he says, "Me and my family will not be able to afford boots." So I lent him a pair of my old work boots, and it changed his whole demeanor as far as his outlook on class. And then I went to student services, and they got him a coupon for a free pair of work boots from one of the factories near us here. And then another student was doing the same kind of episode, and he just wasn't getting the material, the hands-on material very well. So I asked my assistant at the time to just spend a little more time with that student versus walking around and helping other students. And from beginning of the year to the end of the year, that student ended up becoming one of my top students for projects because of it.
Wow. Derek?
So kind of build on what Ali was saying. In the morning before we start our work, they come in and do morning paperwork. I kind of just go around and ask them like more about their personal life. Like today they came in, I asked them like how their holiday weekend was and anybody have anything planned, stuff like that. It even opens up more of the quiet ones. It builds a relationship, and like throughout the day, just taking that 5-10 minutes out of the day, they become more initiative on the day's topics, anything like that. So I think just taking that little bit of time and asking them, outside the shop things, it opens them up more. And I had a issue last year where a kid was very suicidal. And with me being open up with him, he came to me right away. I mean, and the family didn't know about it or didn't know what was going on. So just talking about, the outside life, outside the school program, and just learning about them really opens them up. So I continued this year with it, having 4 new students with it. And even I had 2 of them that weren't very talkative to now. We're in week 5 and every morning they're coming in, ready to talk about it, ready for the day and stuff like that. So I definitely want to keep doing that and just opening up their social life and then even emotionally.
Yeah, and that'll never show up on a standardized test. Some of the things that we do for kids. So we're not different than anybody else, but we're feeding our kids. I'm at a school that qualifies for the community eligibility provision, which means that all of our kids get free breakfast and free lunch. Our mascot is the Golden Eagles. We have the Eagles Nest Boutique, literally where students can go and get clothes. We have a peer leadership program that sponsors a student pantry for things like deodorant, underwear, feminine hygiene. And again, none of these things show up on a test, but all of these things are related to we're all trying to do the best we can for the young people that we have. And knowing where they came from and knowing what they're going through is a huge part of being an effective teacher. And as far as adolescent emotions and stress, I feel bad for this generation today. I've never seen it worse in terms of emotional stress on adolescents. I mean, we all, remember adolescence, and we all had a degree of stress or anxiety or whatnot. But but I think back to my own experience, we just handled it differently. I remember a kid was a grade older than me. His name was Brian. He just kept picking on me. And Saturdays, we used to go to a skate rink, for those of you who remember what a skate rink might be. All right. And finally, I had enough of Brian, and I said, let's go. And we went outside, and I don't think we tussled for more than 30 seconds. There's a big crowd around and everything. There was all kind of snow on the ground. But that was it. We were done. And then years later, Brian was the captain of the football team I was on. But today, and I'm going to go to this social thing too, the anonymity of social media has been detrimental to society's health, let alone adolescent health. And I don't know about you, but a few years ago, we put in cell phone rules. You have 3 options. Don't bring it. If you bring it, it's got to be off. If it's off, you can put it in your locker. Or if you're afraid it's going to disappear, we have cell phone caddies in each room. And you can go room to room. You can go room to room and put your phone in a caddy. And what I will tell you is that not that we've cured our social ills, but wow, as far as the social drama going on the day and what this one posted on this app, Instagram, Snap the Chat, whatever, that's cut it down. So I know the state is considering a law, and maybe some of you have put it in. But if you think about the world of work, you can't be living on your phone and be a productive employee for society anyway. So, I think those types of things we're on the right track by limiting those types of things. Social, and Ali mentioned, she noticed a change in familial, social, romantic relationships. That is some of these things that, these kids will break up with the love of their life that they've been with for 2 weeks, and, they end up in the guidance office, but it's real to them. I'm not going to laugh right when they're in front of me, but after it's over, I might have a chuckle. It's all part of the developmental process. But some of these romantic relationships do get unhealthy. And then morals and values, how adolescents approach the world. Let me give you the following. It's not our job to proselytize, if you will, but it is our job to educate. And I don't think there's anything wrong with educating students on, here's what I really think needs to happen in this world, is we have lost the ability to compromise. Why can't I sit down with any of you, have a conversation with any of you about any topic? And you know what? If we disagree, why can't we just disagree civilly? Maybe our conversation, and I like to talk to people who don't agree with me all the time. I don't want to live in an echo chamber. But by talking to people who feel differently than you, something's going to happen. They're either going to confirm what you believe, maybe they'll give you something different to think about, maybe they'll challenge what you believe. But if I could do one thing in terms of morals and values for these students, is respect of the individual. But I'm not talking about I need to respect them. I'm talking about they need to respect me. Everything's been internalized on self. There's no one more important than themselves. Rather than everybody else is more important than me. Somehow that got flipped. So I really think, and depending on your situations, you need to be careful relative to these morals and values. But I think it's okay to question, and I think it's okay to be civilized. So, however you want to go with that, because I think we're afraid to discuss morals and values. And again, I don't think it's our place to say this is what you should believe. And I don't necessarily even think it's our place to always play our card to them about what we believe. But quite frankly, if they're with you for 3 or 4 years, just the way you act and what you say and what you do, they're going to get a little sense of who you are. But I think regardless of that, honesty should be a universal value, right? Integrity should be a universal value. Compassion should be a universal value. And I really think that this, if you look at our state government as we sit here without a budget, okay, all of those state legislators, and I know a few of them, if they were students, they'd be on behavior plans because they've lost the ability to compromise. And they're not going to get all their way, are they? I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. There's one vote difference in the House, the state House, and we need a budget. And the Senate is Republican and the governor is a Democrat. I'm not going to get into your politics. All I'm doing is laying the following. Those three bodies, the House, the Senate, and the governor, aren't going to all get what they want. And for over 200 days, they have planted their flags and not come to any common sense resolution. See, the difference is in our own lives, we don't have 200 days to figure it out. We don't have 200 days. And but evidently they do. And I'm sorry, a little bit of a pulpit there, but it is what it is relative to that. So in any event, understanding some student characteristics. All right, what universal design for learning, UDL, what does the research show? Okay. Due to unique combinations of genetic factors and individual experience, each human brain is as unique as a fingerprint. The human brain grows and changes in response to learning and experience, not just childhood, but through our lifespan. I'd give a little amen to that one. I married off one of my daughters this year, and she's become an expert on marriage and family in the 6 weeks that she's been married. So maybe I should be taking advice from her. But I see a lot of smiles on that one. So think about what you've learned in your lifetime. And again, just like the experience I showed, what I was doing 30 years ago was wrong. And now I'm trying to teach people not to do what I did 30 years ago because it was wrong. You know, and among students with varied needs, UDL-based instruction can increase engagement as well as academic social outcomes. You know, we're doing okay in this format, and you have other things to do relative to accomplishing this. But if we were in the classroom, this could be so much more dynamic, and we could share in some discussions and whatnot, and have that interaction. Because I want to. We're getting close to the end here, but I want to leave you with a few things. Teachers always do a great job, more than not, of being planned and being prepared and keeping students busy. But that doesn't mean they're engaged. And I want you to think back to Webb's depth of knowledge, level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And engagement really depends on what we're asking them to do. And I ask you to be deliberate in your planning relative to that. All right, so I want to briefly introduce this case study. So you're going to get together with a case manager, and you're going to reference the chosen student in general. We don't need the name to violate confidentiality. When I go through and grade this case study, I'm going to look for student selection. I'm going to look for data collection. I'm going to look for analysis and strategies and reflection. This can be completed in 4 paragraphs. You can put student selection in bold and fill this in. You can put data collection in bold and write about that using these summaries. You can look at analysis and write a paragraph there, and then you can bold strategies and reflections and write your paragraph there. You know, this isn't necessarily essay format, but it will be a written document format. SDI is specially designed instruction. So if you have any questions relative towards that assignment, again, I'm available by email. All right, so as far as any confusion, I hopefully get everybody unconfused as far as grades and assignments. Please make sure that anything that was due relative to Module 1 is complete. If not, go and complete it at your earliest convenience. I'm allowing some grace there because, as Starnetta pointed out, I screwed that up. And then please have your Module 2 stuff done by Friday, and we will then meet next Monday and to have our reflection about this. Any question, comment, concern about today, about moving forward, about the past assignments? Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. So I was wondering, could you make the assignments due on Sunday? Because I slot the weekends to do the work for this, because we're in the middle of an APTE review. And to be honest with you, I got handed a 4-inch binder of documents that I have to replicate, and I don't even know where any of this stuff is. So I'm like underwater with that.
I can tell you what I can do for you, John, and don't tell anybody else, but I know it says due on Friday, but I don't look at them till Monday.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Frecia.
I did panic last week. I didn't have half of my audio working for the first half of our meeting, so I was just watching a lot of faces make little gestures. And then not being able to speak myself and having to text things. I didn't know what was happening till I logged off last week. So I literally did everything regardless to whether or not it needed to be done. So you probably have more than you want from me.
Yeah, and, I recognized your works from today. Yeah. So as a matter of fact, John, I took this Monday off too because it was Labor Day, so I didn't labor. So I looked at assignments today. But yeah, I mean, and here's the thing again, we're all adults, and I know there's a deadline, and I'll be a little bit gracious with it. I'm not looking to whack anybody. But if you have mitigating circumstances, I'm happy to listen to those mitigating circumstances. But put me in front of that, not behind, right? So John's told me, you got an APE review. Is that what you said? Proof program evaluation with a 3-inch binder that they want everything submitted digitally. But I'm going to tell you that they're going to go back to the binder when they come. So all that good stuff. I get it. Just, I'll give you an example. I had some students go 3-4 weeks without turning anything in. And then all of a sudden they got a death in the family. How many times did your aunt die in the last month? I mean, I don't know. So in any event, let's just all keep one another in the loop. I really hope you enjoy this. I really hope that the work becomes valuable. Go ahead, Starnetta.
Yes, I did an assignment. I'm not sure if it was the right one, but it was worth 25 points. And I did it for module 1, and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to do that assignment because I was in class.
Okay. Yeah, all the assignments, anything that's in class is only worth 10 on that on the journal piece. On the assignments, they're 25. You got to do those. So yeah. So we can look at those things.
Because I think that the grading was reversed on those then. Yeah. Because the discussion was worth 10 and then the journal was worth 25. So I did both because I didn't know.
Yeah. That's the Lenrich mix-up, kicking off the course in the wrong direction. So, all right. Well, it's 4:57. Any other question, comment, concern for the day? Thank you for joining. This conversation brings this class a little bit to life. I would not want to do an asynchronous class where all I'm doing is reading papers. It's too impersonal for me. I hope you're getting something out of these discussions, and I hope you have a great year. So thank you, everybody, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. One question, if you're still on.
Go ahead.
So I just looked back at it. I did the discussion board, but do I have to do the modular 1 reflection even though I was in class?
So, I'm gonna double check how things are listed in the grade book, and I'm gonna send out an announcement of clarification. And if that doesn't clear it up, email me.
Because it looks like every week there's a reflection journal, but in the last class that I took, the reflection journal was just if you didn't make it to the Zoom.
Correct. So the 10-point reflection journal is this.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That was my question.
Yep.
I just want to make sure I don't have to write the 1 to 2 page paper.
No.
Because if you're not getting that for like at least a couple weeks, if you want me to write that now,
you're fine. I think we're on the same page now.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I'll hang on for any other questions. Other than that, everybody have a good day.